You are listening to CEOs of Screams, the podcast where we uncover the stories behind the screams of your favorite horror creators and creatives. My name is Sumi and I will hold your hand through this. Hello, Lyndsey. How are you doing? Welcome in. It's good to have you.
Hello, I'm good, thank you. No, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I think you are probably from this, when we record this, it's December, but when it comes out in February, you will very likely be the most known person from the guests that I had so far. At least in the horror community. It's very good to have you.
No, honestly, thank you. It's so great and wonderful to be chatting to you. So no, thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Like, who are you? What's your background? Where can people know you from? Anything really that you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So yes, my name is Lyndsey Craine. So I am an actress who has mainly been in horror movies. So I've done a lot of horror comedies and also some other just kind of straight horrors. Recently did a FMV video game called Dead Reset. So that was a lot of fun because it was completely different to anything we've done before. But horror comedy wise, I've been in films like Book of Monsters, How to Kill Monsters, Eat Miss Campbell's, On Bloggerlips. So yeah, just a broad range, but mostly horror comedies.
And how did that start? Like, how did you get into horror? Was it just something that you were not really drawn to, or was it more like an accident?
Yeah, it was I'd never been sort of drawn to it. To be honest, I was never a big horror fan growing up. I was scared of everything. I literally, the only horror film I could watch was Scream 2. I don't know why it was always Scream 2, but it was always Scream, and Scream's now my favorite franchise. But yeah, and it just so happened that I went to university and did a film and TV production course, so it was more behind the scenes based. But I'd always wanted to act, but it was always a confidence thing. I always thought, I don't know if I'd ever be able to do it. But during that, when I was on the course, I ended up acting in everyone's films, and I ended up meeting my now husband at university, and he's very, very into horror. So him, Stuart Spark, and his partner Paul Butler run Dark Rift Horror. So they're the ones that I make a lot of my movies with. And yeah, it was just Stuart started making short films, horror shorts that he asked me to act in, and then went on to make his feature film. So the first film they did was The Creature Below, and I'm in that for about 30 seconds at the end. And then the second film, Book of Monsters, he said, look, there's a part in this that I think you'd be really good for, and that was my first feature film. So it kind of ended up just being, I guess, a little bit of accidentally falling into horror. But it's been a lot of fun. It's just kind of ironic that I'm working horror and was very scared of it. I'm not anymore. Well, I still am actually, but I watch a lot more of horror than I ever thought I would.
So that is Dark Rift Horror, the studio, right?
Yes.
And what is that exactly? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, of course. So Dark Rift Horror, so their kind of motto is they make blood-soaked popcorn horror. So they just make a lot of fun horror films, all practical effect driven, and that just people can just have, as I said, a lot of fun with, and just can enjoy just sitting down on a Saturday night and just watching a silly film. So as I said, they've made Creature Below, Book of Monsters, How to Kill Monsters. They made a documentary called Iron Monsters with Nicholas Vince, and as I said, we've just done Dead Reset as well. So we've made five feature films, kind of with including the interactive movie video game. So it's been incredible to have made 5 projects with them. And as I said, they're just a love of practical effects. And Stuart, as I said, has directed all of them, and Paul is the writer. And they just, I think a lot of the time they watch so many horror films and then they think, right, I'd love to do a scene like that. Let's build a film around that idea or anything like that. Or
fun.
Or Stuart will be like, let's just throw a monster into this random film and see what happens. And And they just have a lot of fun. And I think that's, as I said, that's always their motto, is just for people to have fun watching their films, that there's nothing, you can just kind of get lost in one of their movies, and they're always, as I said, very practical effect driven, always 80s inspired, and yeah, that's just kind of what they love doing.
Yeah, and I can definitely confirm the fun popcorn. Like it's not what they call elevated horror, but it's so fun. It's so fun to watch. I've watched How to Kill Monsters, Book of Monsters, and I think Eating Miss Campbell is not from Dark Rift, though, right?
No, yes, so no, but thank you for watching those films. Yeah, so Eating Miss Campbell is a film I did with Liam Regan of Refuse Films. So that was a separate film that I did. But yes, the other ones were with Dark Rift. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can definitely recommend it it's great cinema great cinema sounds like it's like elevated, but what I mean is like it's great to watch with friends, and definitely with like a bunch of popcorn and snacks, and just nobody is really annoyed when you talk over a scene. Just have fun and laugh and enjoy your time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I think that's the thing. We don't take ourselves seriously. We don't take the films too seriously. So as you said, people can just, with a bunch of friends and just have a lot of fun with them. I think Dead Reset was a much more serious project that we did. Yeah. So it's kind of leaning away from the comedy side of it, but we do have a lot of fun making the comedies, because as I said, they're just silly, just running around with puppets and rubber monsters. It's always a strange experience, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, Dead Reset was definitely more serious, but still very over the top when it came to like gore and blood. There was a lot of blood involved.
So much blood, it's insane. Yeah.
It was, and the special effects were so fun. So as a leader of CEOs of Scream, the Stream team, we got from Wales Interactive one of the collector's box editions, like with the handcrafted eye. And one of our members won it, and she did a big unpacking and showed everything on stream, and it's so fun. Like,
that's awesome.
The little details on this like eyeball thing that was the in eyeball. There. I can see if I can put a picture of that into the show notes. Like it was so great. But yeah, there goes a lot of work into those movies, even if they are just a little bit silly. They still are really, really fun.
Yeah. So the special effects were done by GTFX, which is Graham and Mim, and they just did such a fantastic job with it. The special effects just look incredible. Just so realistic, and the eyeball in particular was a key one that just looked so real. And there was just buckets and buckets of blood, and this is the thing, any film that I've done, I always make the mistake of saying this will be the most blood I'll ever have thrown at me, and I'm always wrong. Because the next film comes along and there's just so much more. There was a particular bit in Dead Reset where the creature jumps onto me and rips out my neck in one of the death loops, and I'm talking about liters of blood came out of my neck and just went fully down my costume. I was stood in just a puddle of blood at the end. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, where do I go now? Covered in blood. So it never becomes, because people always say to me, oh, you must be used to this now, but it's never something that you can get used to. Getting covered in this crazy blood. But the one thing with that, the blood that we used for that, it washed out very easily, so that was very much appreciated.
Very good. Like if it's like sugar with
that one gets very sticky.
Yeah. So have you played movies that were not horror at all, like feature films length?
I haven't actually been in many. More recently I've done a few films that have kind of horror elements to them, but they're not necessarily full gory or anything like that. I've done a handful of films without blood, which is wonderful to do.
Just like a nice change of scenery.
Yes, it's so nice. But I would love to do like a nice rom-com. So if anyone's casting rom-coms, please let me know. I would love to do.
I would like to see you in I have
Go on.
seen the book covers that you're on, and now
Oh yes,
I kind of want to see you in like a period piece, in
I would love that.
like a Jane Eyre movie or something. That would be so fun.
Yes, I would love that. So yeah, I did. It was insane that I got that book cover actually, because I did a photo shoot with a photographer called Laura Rantler, who's amazing, and it just got picked up from there, and I ended up on one of the Bridgerton book covers, which was completely unexpected. And I remember Laura and I just being like, "What? What is this?" So that was very exciting. So yes, if I would, oh my goodness, I would love to be in a period piece. That would be so cool.
With your accent also, I feel like with the British accent, I say the British accent as if there's only one, but with your British accent, I feel like that would be a very good fit.
It would be a lot of fun. I'd love it.
So among all the roles that you have done, which one was your favorite? Do you have one, or I mean, I'm sure you will say I love all of them, but there must be a favorite, right?
There must be a favorite. I think Fern from Dead Reset is my favorite, purely because I really enjoyed the drama elements that were involved in Dead Reset.
Yeah.
That, you know, obviously, as we said, there was a lot of gore and things like that, but I just loved how she had a lot of depth to her, and, you know, she'd been through a lot, and she goes through a lot as well. And I think as the way we shot Dead Reset, because obviously the different variants that we had, you know, it was really cool to experience that character in many different ways, because she obviously has a different relationship with the player character, Cole, played by Daniel Thrace, depending on what the player chooses. So obviously you can build a relationship with Cole, or you can kind of not get along with him. And so it was really fun kind of exploring those aspects of the character rather than just kind of doing one linear story. It was almost like 4 different stories in one. So I think Fern is my favorite, I think, just because of that, just because there was so much to play with her. Yeah. So I think Fern. I mean, you were right. I would have said, all of them, but I think I think Fern does stand out for me as being a very special character to play.
Yeah. In my playthrough, you ended up together, and I'm not going to say how it ends for the people who don't haven't played yet, but you get along well in my playthrough.
Oh God, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So obviously, with the multiple choices, you have to basically take every scene multiple times in multiple different ways. As you just said, it's like doing 4 movies with 4 different outcomes and different branches where it can go. Is there anything else that's different from doing a movie? Like, it is still a movie, but it's also a game. What are the differences besides that?
To be honest, we filmed it very similar to a film. So I think in that sense, they were very similar. We just kind of followed the same route as if it was just, you know, a film, obviously with it being a game. I think obviously the elements that we had to add that we wouldn't normally were the when the player is making a choice, obviously we had to kind of give 5 seconds for that to happen. So there was a lot of, you know, after you'd ask Cole a question or whichever, kind of the interactions with no speaking, just kind of using your eye contact and things like that, just so the player had time to choose. Yeah, so there was always a moment where we're all kind of just staring at him.
Yeah, because I played in streamer mode, so I have a lot of time to answer the questions, because I wanted my chat to be able to choose with me. And then there's an extra setting where there's no time pressure to make a choice. But I didn't even think about it because I haven't played that way. There is a time where you have to be quiet and look at each other and like still keep acting without talking, but it's not paused. Like, it's not like you standing there for 30 minutes and not moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like so that was always interesting to do, because you know, you're kind of keeping in character and kind of in the moment where it isn't necessarily something that you would normally do. You normally don't stare at each other for 5 seconds without saying anything. So that was a little bit different. And I think probably the main difference, as I said, was the different variants. So, for example, as I said with my character, that you could either get along very well with the player character or not. There was a scene in particular where we did each variant back to back. And in one of the takes, it was very sweet. And then the next variant was not, and it was, she was very angry, and it was doing the switch so quickly, just having to go into that kind of headspace, just switching from one emotion to the next was a challenge.
I can imagine.
So I think that was probably very different, just just trying to remember, at what point your character's at and which variant your character's in, because you kind of have to keep in your head, we have to make sure that we're rewarding the player with the choice that they've made, and just kind of trying to keep on track really with, okay, what would the player have chosen at this point to warrant this response? So there was a lot of thinking to do, because I suddenly couldn't be all happy with him if the player hadn't chosen that choice. So it was just trying to make subtle differences, but also big differences in performance, to make sure that you're following what the player would want, and the relationship that the characters would have. So yeah, it was difficult at times, just trying to. I mean, the script was nearly 500 pages long, so it was a lot to remember. And just trying to keep on track, I think, was always the most difficult thing. Just keep thinking, what is she thinking right now? What's Fern doing right now?
Yeah. Have you noticed after the game was published a difference how it was received? Because obviously people have seen your movies, but I do watch a lot of movies, but I also play a lot of horror games, and I feel like Dead Reset got a lot of attention. Maybe it's also just my bubble, I don't know. No, actually, it's not just my bubble, because I'm in the jury of the Horror Game Awards, and I know that Dead Reset also got a lot of attention there. How was it? Was there a difference for you afterwards, like how people received you, or?
Yeah, I think it's one of them where it was so unknown for us, because we'd never gone into the game industry before. So it was all kind of, I remember the game the day it came out, and it just kind of was released, and we were like, oh, the game's out, and kind of going on Twitch and seeing people play it, and it was very surreal, I think is probably the best way to describe it. And as you said, people seem to be enjoying it, which is all, more than we could ever ask for. It's kind of a dream to see people having fun with it and getting really invested in the story and the characters, and just seeing people have conversations about aspects of the game, or character relationships, and really dive into the story. And so it's just been a joy really to watch, and as I said, just very, very surreal, and I feel very lucky and fortunate to be a part of it and to have made it. Because I can't thank people enough for playing it, and and it's just wonderful to see people enjoying it, because that's all you want. You just want people to have as much fun with your film or with the game, that to have as much fun with it as you had making it, if that makes sense. You just want you want your product to just bring joy to people, and just so people can have fun with it. And I think that was, but I think, as I said, surreal is probably the best word to describe. Just as I said, I think the moment we saw the trailer on PlayStation's YouTube channel, I think was a moment where we really were like, what? How is this? What? That was a real wow moment. I think particularly for Stuart, he was just blown away by that, and it was a dream come true for him. Being an avid gamer, his whole life, and a horror fan, and so I think it's just been amazing, to be honest, and we just feel very, very grateful. And as I said, just hope that people continue to have fun with it.
Yeah, and I would say you have definitely accomplished that. As the lead of CEOs of Screams, I have seen how people receive the game, and I don't think I have talked to anybody who didn't like it. There's always people who don't like FMVs, but None that I have talked to. Like, if I look at the reviews, it's always people who just should not have picked up the game in the first place if they don't like FMVs. Everybody else loves it. It's great.
Oh no, that's so good to hear. Yeah, it's just that's the thing. It's not, FMVs aren't for everyone, and that's okay, and but if it finds its people that love that style of game, then that's perfect for us. So yeah.
Yeah, my chat had a blast. I know there was somebody who also played it on their own Twitch channel. They were an absolute Fern fan. They were constantly talking in my chat about how cute Fern is. It was really sweet. I think
so nice.
It was really cute. So yeah, you definitely were a fan favorite there. People did not like I forget his name.
Is it Slade?
Yes!
Slade.
The poor guy who played him.
Honestly, it's so funny because Dennis Razak, who plays Slade, he's the nicest guy. Like he's so lovely, and he just plays that character so well, and it was so much fun. And what's really funny actually is, so that's the second time that we've worked with Dennis, and I worked with Dennis on How to Kill Monsters, and we played girlfriend and boyfriend in How to Kill Monsters, and then suddenly we're in Dead Reset playing two characters that hate each other, so we couldn't have flipped more if we tried. We went from being a happy little couple to hating each other. So but yeah, Dennis did an amazing job, and yeah, but no, thank you to everyone who did enjoy my performance. Like it genuinely means the world, so thank you.
And how was it to work with Wales Interactive? Because I have talked to the PR person, obviously, for CEOs of Scream, like that was my person to contact. But otherwise, I feel like they are very, very likable. How was it for you to work with them?
Yeah, they're amazing. They've been such an incredible team to work with, and we feel very lucky that we've had the opportunity to work with them. They just gave us so much freedom and so much, they were so supportive, and it was just so great to collaborate with them. I got an opportunity to meet a few of them, and they came to visit us on set, and they were just so nice, so much fun. Obviously I was a little bit nervous about meeting them because, you always think, meeting the company that you're working with, but they're so lovely, and just really excitable, and yeah, it was just a dream, really. They really are a lovely bunch, and it was absolutely fantastic to work with them. As I said, feel very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite companies in the gaming field, I would say, like from the ones that I have been in contact with, of course.
Yeah, no, they're so nice, really nice.
So in Dead Reset, you play a researcher, so something more serious. But in at least 2 of the movies that I've watched that you were in, you play a teenager. And not to be offending you, but I don't think you are a teenager.
How dare you?
So I feel like, with it being horror comedies, it's kind of fine. And also in what was it? It was in Eating Miss Campbell. There was a lot of sub commentary about it as well. That you are like in your 30s playing teenagers. How is it for you to play teenager? Did you just play it as if it was any role, or did you actually try to get in a teenage mindset?
Yeah, to be honest, I just played it as me, really. As I would. So the 2 films, Book of Monsters, which, just as I said, was my first film. And I was a little bit older than 18 when I did that role. I can't remember what year did we make it. No, but I wasn't 18, as you pointed out. But I was in my mid-20s, so I was a little bit older than 18. But I think it was just one of them that, the story made sense, that it was an 18th birthday party, and it just kind of went with that. And I think a lot of films do it. They often get actors who are a lot older than the age. But with Eating Miss Campbell, Liam did make a running commentary of the fact that none of us were 18, but we were all playing 18-year-olds because he was just poking fun at the fact that how often that happens in Hollywood.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah, it does. So we were like, well, we'll just do it as well. So that was very funny. But no, I don't think I necessarily would get into the sort of a teenage mindset. I think with Book of Monsters, it was my very first, as I said, feature film. So I was very nervous, and I think maybe that helped performance-wise, just because to begin with, my character Sophie in that is very shy and nervous, and so I think I was able to kind of utilize those feelings a little bit. And then with Eat Miss Campbell, my character Beth is just, she doesn't care at all. She is who she is, and she was a lot of fun to play. Yeah. So I think, pardon.
I love her because she's so.
Oh, thank you.
She's so grungy and like it's just very very builds up walls against everyone. Basically, like her father and her stepmom and everybody who works in school, and even the people like her students, the students that are students with her. She's just so edgy. I love that.
Yeah, she was fun to play because unlike any character I'd played before, whereas she just needed herself. She was just on her own, and she was so sarcastic and just, I think the breaking the fourth wall in that film was a lot of fun to do, and again something that I never thought I'd get a chance to do.
Oh yeah.
It was such a different experience. It's obviously you're always told don't look at the camera, and then suddenly you're looking down the barrel of the lens and you're thinking this feels very strange. But yeah, she didn't care, but also she did care a lot. I think that's what made Beth quite interesting, was deep down I think she cared a lot, but to the outside world and to all the people that she interacted with, she couldn't care less what they thought of her. And it was that was a lot of fun to do.
I think nobody who wants to wake up in a romance movie does not care. So she definitely cared how it was, but like it was very important to her that everybody thinks she doesn't care.
Right.
Which is a very teenage thing, really. Like
it is. Yeah, actually. Yeah, you're right. So maybe subconsciously I tapped into a teenage mindset.
So you said you didn't grow up with horror, really, but now you do watch quite a bit of horror. I assume also because of your husband, because you get together and watch something. Do you have like a favorite genre of horror that like do you like the comedy horror, or would you like to do something very different for once, like a ghost movie, psychological horror or something?
Yeah. So I've done and I'm hoping they'll come out next year. I'm hoping. So I've done 2 more psychological horrors. I've done a ghost film as well, which were both so much fun to do. But in terms of the films that I like, to be honest, I like such a broad range of horror, and I think that's what's great about horror is there's so many subgenres to it. As I said, my favorite horror films are the Scream films. I'd love to be in a slasher film. I just want to be in a Scream film, basically. Just basically want to be that. Nev Campbell's like my ultimate Scream queen. But yeah, I think so. I think because obviously being with Stuart and the amount of horror he watches, I do tend to watch such a broad range. So yeah, I think if I do the reverse, I think the films that I don't like as much are kind of zombie films, and I don't know why. I think zombie films and in fact actually ghost films freak me out the most, I think. But I'm not really into the kind of more torture gore. I'm not as much into those kind of films. But as I said, I do like a slasher film. I just think they're a lot when they're done like Scream. I really liked Ready or Not, and I'm excited for the next one to come out, and I'm really excited for Scream 7. So I think those kind of horror films where they have a kind of fun aspect to them as well, I really enjoy. But at the same time, I do really like psychological horror. So yeah, it's as I said, it's just great to see so many, and it's horror's becoming so much bigger now as well. So it's cool. It's I couldn't say a particular genre. I don't think it's kind of I like films in each genre, if that makes sense. But I think,
could also not decide, but just like
it's hard
to
isn't
think
it?
about. Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite would be sci-fi horror, like anything in space or
Yeah.
Under the Sea. There's like this horror movie with Kristen Stewart. Underwater. Yeah.
Yes, very good film.
I found it so scary at parts that I had to pause it for a couple of minutes. Like I literally pressed pause and said to my husband, I think I have to take a break for this. This is too scary.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. There was a film I watched. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Lake Mungo.
Oh yeah, the documentary style movie. Yes,
there's something about that film that really scared me. Yeah. I don't know what it was. It's just there's a lot of. I think it's an Australian film, but if it's not, forgive me. But there's a lot of Australian films I think are really scary as well. They just get horror. They just do it very well. I think it's Wolf Creek that terrified me.
Yes, Wolf Creek. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the killer in that is awful.
Yeah.
As all the killers in the films are awful, but in that one in particular, it's horrible.
Yeah. And it's funny. I know somebody who is related to John Jarratt, who plays Mick in Wolf Creek.
Wow, that's so cool.
And he's in real life like a super sweet man. Very, very sweet. Now also a little bit older, so has to get help with like technical stuff, like new tech that he doesn't understand. And it's so funny because he's so disgusting. So that just shows what a good actor he is. In Wolf Creek.
Yeah, you hear that a lot actually. That the nicest people play the worst, nastiest characters.
Yes. I heard that as well about what is it? House of Thousand Corpses, like the whole Rob Zombie movie universe. There's somebody that plays Otis. I forget what the actor is called, but he's like the sweetest person in real life. And I saw like a little behind the scenes where everybody was making fun of him, that he would apologize every time he swears, even though his character swears a lot. And I think it's so cute to have like the contrast between the actors and the roles. And when you say you don't like horror movies, have you don't like zombie movies? Have you seen Train to Busan?
We watched that last night, which is really interesting.
That's crazy.
I know, we literally watched that yesterday. I have, and it's an incredible film. The young girl in that film is so good. As a child actor, she's amazing. And it's always, I think, because it made me cry at the end. Too. Yeah, it's so emotional, and it's just done so well, that film. But the zombies in that film are terrifying. I don't like when zombies can run. I think that, for me, is too far.
It's scary, because cardio. You would have to have cardio.
I don't want to have to run as well. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm not a fan of a running zombie.
I get that.
I think there's some zombie films that I don't mind. I don't know what it is about zombie. I think it's so ridiculous. Because I haven't seen The Walking Dead, and it's because in the first episode I saw up to them killing a horse, and I was like, no, I'm out. They can't kill a horse. That's horrible. And I just refused to watch it because of this poor horse. So I don't know what it is about zombie films. There's just, I think it's when they run fast, it just freaks me out. But Train to Busan was very, very, very good. There's also, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a film called One Cut of the Dead.
Yes, very, very funny.
Oh my goodness, so good. And that film's so clever, because the first half, you're sitting there thinking, what is going on? What is this film? And then when you find out the kind of twist, what they're doing, you're like, this is genius. This is so clever. So I do, good. Very, very good. So there are some films that I do like, but I think they just scare me. I think that's things like we went to see 28 Years Later at the cinema, and I thought that was great. Again, kind of unexpected as well, the new one, in terms of the emotional side that came with it. But the first few of them, again, really scare me, because I think it's when the zombies are just so angry. Yes. Too angry. It's like, just calm down. It's okay.
They just need a hug. Zombies just need a hug.
Yeah. To hug some chocolate and you'll be fine.
But isn't it beautiful how everybody is scared of different things? Like for me, my scariest movie, and some people agree, and some people are shaking their heads and don't understand. You probably have seen Hereditary.
Yes.
Like that's for me the scariest movie I've ever seen. It made
I can see why.
scream, like not like a jump scare gasp, but like literal roller coaster scream at one point. And that's for me the scariest movie. And then on the other hand, a friend asked me, "Can I watch Annihilation?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." There's like one or two scenes that are pretty scary, but it's not definitely you can watch it. What I didn't know is this person is terrified of aliens, so she absolutely lost it and thought I did that on purpose, sending her into this very, very scary movie for her. But I just didn't think about that for somebody else, this movie could be this scary.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, and I think Hereditary is very, very scary, and it's very clever with how it's played out. And I think you look at films like Blair Witch Project, which again is genius, and it's very scary. And I think what I love about those films in particular is that you never see it. You never see what's scaring you, and that's often the case. Is your own imagination is much scarier than anything that can be created on screen. It's things like the Insidious films; they really scare me. And there's I was talking with my friends about the Paranormal Activity films. And there's a bit in the third, I think it's the third one, where there's the ghost is under a sheet or something, and the girl turns around and the sheet drops to the floor, and there's nothing there. That scared me. I think it's just things like that again, it's probably quite simple to do in terms of the filming side of it, but when you're watching it, you're like, oh no, I don't like that. I don't like things under sheets. I don't like that. That's scared. Yeah, those things scare me. I do. This is the thing. Having been in horror, I do get scared very, very easily. Still, so
I love that it's not destroying it for you, really.
No, not at all. No, it's still. I think I just get so absorbed in the films that they just, and I don't know whether it's my own imagination that plays with me too much after the films, where I just think about it for too long. But yeah, in the moment, gosh, I can get really, scared by many, many films.
So to go back a step, when you said you were watching on Twitch how people were playing Dead Reset, or also like reaction to the movies that you've done besides that, is there like a moment that stuck with you, how somebody reacted or somebody reached out to you and let you know something, just like a little behind the scenes knowledge? Any reactions that stand out?
To be honest, I think we've been really lucky that so Book of Monsters and How to Kill Monsters, and just speaking from sort of Dark Rift horror side, both had their premieres at Fright Fest, which is a film festival in London. So they both screened in Leicester Square at Cineworld, and just that in itself was just such an amazing experience. And to see to see my face on a screen that big is something that I've only ever dreamt of, and to have our films played in a cinema, and I think just seeing their reaction, I think that's always the nerve-wracking thing, especially when you've made a horror comedy, is are people going to laugh in the right places? Are they going to laugh at the jokes? Are they not? And I think it's always an interesting but extremely nerve-wracking experience. And it particularly was the first time we watched the film with an audience. But I think when you get that first laugh and you think, okay, people are on board with this, people understand what we're doing with the film, they understand the characters. And I think, as I said, when the film is finished and, we go to the front and do Q&A or whichever, and, afterwards, and people come up to us, and I think just people saying, oh, I had so much fun with that. Oh, I really enjoyed that. And, I really loved your character. It's just so incredible, and it makes the whole it's kind of indescribable, really, because it's so overwhelming, because this is my dream, and to be doing something like this is amazing. And just to kind of share it with an audience, and just to have people enjoy it, and just to see people laughing and just having a good time, and that's all we could ever hope. So I think they're always the moments that stay with us, is just even if it's been a very stressful post-production period, the minute you see other people enjoying it, it makes it all worth it. And you're thinking, yeah, we're going to make another one kind of thing, even if it's been the most stressful experience. We're going to keep making movies because we love to do it, and we love to share that with other people, and yeah, just to kind of, just have people enjoy it. I think that's the main thing. And I think also sharing that experience with the whole cast and crew as well is such a great experience, because quite often it's been a year since you've seen a lot of the people, and it's just so nice to see everyone again and to just share that with everyone. So yeah, I think that's probably the best thing that can come out of making movies, is just being with like-minded people who enjoy the same kind of stuff. And or if there's been a twist in a film, when I don't want to give anything away, but one of the films that I'm in has a twist, and having people come up to me and say, I did not see that coming, is always a really, really nice experience, because you're like, yes, okay, it worked, because that's always plays on your mind, where you think, is this twist going to work? Is it going to pull off? But when people come up and say, oh my goodness, yeah, I did not see that coming at all, that's always a nice moment.
Yeah, I can say that. I definitely was surprised. There's one twist in one of the movies that I've watched, and I did not see it coming. But I also thought that this was probably so fun for you, like with the twist, without spoiling too much, that you could play different things in the same movie. I feel like that must be so fun.
Yeah, it really was. It was a challenge, but it was so much fun because they were so polar opposites. So it was, I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, but I understand. No, let's not ruin it. Everybody just watch the 3 movies that I mentioned earlier, and you will find out which one we're talking about.
Yes.
So I assume you cannot really pick one that you are proudest of. I feel like that would be a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think I'm proud in different ways. I think Book of Monsters, I think, will always hold a special place in my heart, just because it was, as I said, the first film I ever did. So that will always, be special for me, because it was literally, it was my dream, and it was, so that one will always be, I think. But as I said, it's always a proud moment every time, we're on set and making something, because it's amazing just to be able to do this. And, and I think Dead Reset, I'm really proud of, just because it's, so different to anything we've done before. And, being in the gaming industry as well is just really, really cool. So, I think it's difficult to pick out just one, but I think those two stand out in a way, just for those kind of personal reasons, I think.
And have you been keeping up with how Dead Reset is doing? Like, do you go back sometimes and read reviews, or do you know how well it did on the Horror Game? I mean, the Horror Game Awards, the show will be on the 13th of December. But when people are hearing this, it's already over.
Right.
But
I mean, I don't go and read reviews. I try my best to not do that, just
Very
because.
Smart.
Just because it can, you never know which way it's going to go. I think I saw people playing it on Twitch, but again, there was a couple that I think on the first few days that I may have interacted with. But again, it's really difficult. I find watching myself very strange, because you can't help but, I mean, this might not be the case for other actors, but you can't help but be critical of yourself when you're watching. I really enjoy.
I think so.
Yeah. It's really strange, because I love watching the films to see everyone else's performance and to see how the films come together, and that's such an exciting experience. But see, when you're watching yourself, sometimes you're thinking, why did I do that? Why did I say that like that? Or, why did I look like that? So it's quite difficult to sit and watch. But sort of written reviews, I'll try and I try not to read them unless someone has sent one to me and gone, this is a great review, have a read, then I will. And that's always, wonderful to see when people have really connected with something that we've made. But I wouldn't go out hunting for a review, just in case.
But I think it's the same for everybody who creates something. Like even me as a streamer, if I most streamers will tell you. I mean, you've streamed yourself on Twitch before. Will tell you when you go back and look at your VODs, you will always find something to pick on, and like you are your biggest critic. It took me I've been streaming for 5 years, and it took me 5 years to actually be able to look at my VODs and feel like, I would watch that if I wasn't me.
No, that's great that you got to that point, because you're right. You do. We are our own worst critics, and we can't help but, I think, look at things we do and think, I guess it's always a way of wanting to improve what you're doing, but at the same time you can be horrible to yourself, because you sit there thinking, oh no, don't do that. So I think it's, as you said, I think it's the same in any sort of creative outlet. Looking at something that you've done previously, I think it's always difficult to do. But I think as well it can work in a positive way, because you can think, okay, if you didn't like the way you did something, okay, next time you're going to change something, or you're going to do something different. So try and spin a negative into a positive sometimes.
Exactly, yeah. With the indie horror community, it's already very familiar and small in community, but with your studio, you work with a lot of people many times. Like lots of people that are in one of your movies are also in that reset, and there's like a tight-knit group kind of. Is that something that's important to you? Is that something that helps you to feel more comfortable on set?
Yeah, I think there's like a reliability factor to that, and also there's we've built a really nice little family with Dark Rift in particular. As you said, we use a lot of the same cast and the same crew. We form such a bond, I think, when we're on set with each other, and because with Dead Reset, for example, we were shooting for the initial block was 5 weeks, so it's a long time that you're together, and you just very, very quickly become very close. And you can just, as I said, as you said, feel very comfortable around each other, and you can rely on each other, and particularly for Stuart, when he's writing certain roles, he can write a role with a particular actor in mind, and because he knows that actor could be able to perform or be able to do what has in mind. So I think it's a combination, and to be honest, I think it's also, we just really enjoy working with these people, and we've, as I said, formed very, very good friendships. And I think you've got to think, if we're going to be on set for 5 weeks, we want to get the right people, but who are we going to have fun working with for 5 weeks? Who understands? I think particularly on a Dark Rift horror set, and I think everyone who's been on one will understand this. It's a lot of fun. We do have a lot of fun, and we're very silly, and because obviously the stuff we're making as well is silly. And people get that. I think when they're on set, they're not, people very quickly realize that we don't take things seriously. We're having as much fun off set as you can possibly imagine, and I think that's why we get very close very quickly, because we're all just being super silly together and just really let our guard down, and there's no there's just really lovely atmosphere, and everyone we bring in just quickly gets the vibe, and it just makes for for us to think, okay, moving forward, we really want to work with that person again. Let's bring that person back, and because they just get it, and they're all extremely talented and incredible at what they do. And I think it's such a good balance when you're on set, when you can have a really good laugh, but then you can when to get it serious. When we do like Dead Reset, for example, there was a lot of serious emotional scenes in that, and just surrounding yourself with people who you're comfortable with for those kind of scenes, I think is really, really important. And there's got to be a lot of trust on set when it comes to those kind of things. So I think finding people who you can have so much fun with, but can also cry in front of, I think is really important. And and as I said, it's just a real amazing little family that we've built, and a little community that we've built with Dark Rift. And I feel so lucky to have worked with everyone that's been involved in Dark Rift, because they're all just incredible at what they do. And yeah, as I said, that's why we keep working with them.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like I would have a great time as well if I was an actor. I'm not nothing near an actress. I was on the stage for one school play or something. But that's it. Like I might be a performer when it comes to streaming, but I think for acting, I'm lacking some skills. When it comes to games like Dead Reset, I know you have played that at least twice. Once with Johnny Beard, who was nice enough to connect us. And once before, I think you mentioned on his stream that you played it before. Do you play horror games in general, or is that just something that you did for the Dark Rift Twitch channel for fun, or do you do that in your free time as well?
No, I don't. I don't play horror games in my own time, just because I'm terrible at them. So when I stream, I've been streaming on and off for a while, and I basically started streaming because my husband got me to. He plays a lot of horror games, and he said, "Oh, do you want to have a go?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I was so bad. So bad. And he said, "Oh my goodness, you need to stream. It would be hilarious for you to go on and stream." And the first game that I tried on Twitch was Dead Space. And my goodness, I was terrible. And you'd think in that time I would have learned, I would have advanced my gaming ability, but it just hasn't improved at all. It's actually quite shocking. I think the problem I have is I don't know where the keys on the keyboard are, and equally, I don't know where the buttons on the the controller. That's the one. I don't even know what it's called.
What even is the hardware called?
What do you put in your hand to play a game? I don't know where the buttons are, so I have to look down to see which button I have to press. And by the time I look back up, 9 times out of 10, I'm dead. So it doesn't bode well. But I do have fun with. I mean, I've played quite a few games on stream now. So I've done like games that. I've attempted many games, but games that I've completed. I've done like Resident Evil 7, 8, 3. I've done Until Dawn, The Quarry. Trying to think what else I've done. The ones that I really enjoy, and just going back actually to when you said that you audibly screamed at Hereditary. Yeah. Have you ever played the Fears to Fathom games?
Yes. All of them.
Oh my goodness. So the first one, the Home Alone one. Mm-hmm. So there was a bit in that where because they're knocking at the door, and I left the bedroom to walk down the stairs, and the guy, whoever's in the house, jumps out of the door that's right next to the stairs. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I screamed. Yeah. Very, very loud. And I don't think I've ever screamed that loud in a game before. It was on part of the screams that I have to do in films. That's how bad it was. And my friend who I do some co-op streams sometimes with 2 of my really good friends, Dave and Isla, and they always comment on how funny that moment was, because I was genuinely terrified because I'm so invested. But I love the Fears to Fathom games. I think they're my favourite. I've played them all, and they're all just so good. So I do try and stream. I'm not very consistent with it. I think that's the problem. I wish I was more consistent, but sometimes, particularly when I'm working on a project, it means that I'm away and I can't commit to the stream as much as I'd like to. But it's a lot of fun, and we've got such a lovely community that come in on the chat, and and I think that's what I love about it more than anything, is just the chat. Just some hilarious people that just come in, and to be honest, my streams, they tend to just be, we talk about food. For literally all we do. I don't know why, it just always falls back to talking about food. A solid 30 minutes we'll talk about like the last stream I did, we talked about soup for like 30 minutes.
Soup is like a topic that's very dear to my heart. I love soup so much. In my community, it's also very known. I have a soup emote in my chat. Like, soup is my biggest love.
That's so funny. I love that. You need to come into our stream because the soup chat is, yeah, it was there's some avid haters of soup in my chats.
No, I will fight them.
It'll make some great chat. But yeah, a lot of the time we just talk about snacks and but then we'll talk about horror films and things like that. But 9 times out of 10, we're talking about what we had for dinner.
I love that.
So yeah, but a lot of the time it's just me being horrendous at games. So I always like when someone comes in and tells me where to go. So the last game that I'm in the middle of, I've still not finished it, is Resident Evil 4. Mm-hmm. I can't do shooting games. I can't aim. I can't do it. When someone comes in and tells me where to go, that's always great. If they're like, right, you need to go into this building, because that's what I need. I just need someone to tell me what to do.
So backseat gaming is allowed in your chat.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Which game are you streaming at the moment?
I just started one that came out last week. It's called Sleep Awake.
Okay.
It's I haven't gotten very far. I think actually people tell me it's pretty short for the €30 that it costs, but it has like a great world building. So I don't know why, but people when they fall asleep in this world are at risk to disappear from that world. So everybody tries to stay awake with like drugs, and there's also this cult who tries to not fall asleep with through pain. So they inflict pain on each other to stay awake. And there's like different kinds of people who approach not sleeping differently. And then it's very trippy because you get into like nightmare worlds, and like it's really good. There's also some live action in that, so I think there was some acting involved. So that's definitely a good one. But if you struggle with reacting fast, like pressing buttons on time, maybe you should try a couple of the slower paced ones. There's like Slay the Princess, I can imagine would maybe something interesting for you, or Oxenfree. People call those like cozy horror because you don't have to be like super super fast in your reactions usually. And maybe you have to deep dive into the cozy horror a little.
Maybe. Yeah. That's the thing. I think is off stream, I play like Disney Dreamlight and Power Simulator, like really, really like opposite games. They're my kind of vibe.
I me too. Like I just before we started recording, I closed a game. It's called Rusty's Retirement, I think, and it's like this little idle game that's on the bottom of your screen, so you can screen. So you can do different things while you play, and it's very, very nice. It's very cute.
Yeah, that's just, we love a cute game. Spend hours on cute games.
Yeah. So you said you started streaming on Twitch because your husband found it so funny how you are like struggling, and that's how you started there.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so there's nothing like it wasn't like Dark Rift was searching for somebody who streams, and then you were the one that was supposed to do it.
Imagine if I was like, yeah, I'm really good at games, yeah, I'm great, and then I turn up like, no, yeah, it was purely a thing of this would be funny to do. Let's just see what happens. Because as I said, I'd played a couple of games with him, and he was like, "You are atrocious," and
brutally honest.
honestly, it was so bad. And I think my cousin had been streaming for a while, and that's when my husband said, "Oh, why don't we set up a streaming channel?" And I just thought I'd give it a go. But yeah, Dead Space was horrendous. Which was the other games I was really bad at? Alien Isolation was not good at that.
That's a game that also experienced gamers sometimes are too scared to like react in time, and it's very, very
so difficult.
Intense.
Yeah, the Alan Wake, I tried that. I couldn't do that. There's Resident Evil 2, I had to stop halfway because that was too difficult. So I think, to be honest, it's me persevering through a game has become quite rare. But I do, as I said, I co-op with my friends sometimes. So we do like Repo, we've done Lethal Company, and just Demonologist, a lot of games like that, and they're so much fun because playing it with them too is just such a good laugh. And if I'm rubbish, it's okay because they're good.
They can carry you.
I can let the team down, but they can pull me through. Yeah, so it's fine. The amount of times I'm screaming at them to come back for me, I've got a really bad habit of just wandering off and getting lost. So I get distracted by something. So I do have a lot of fun doing it. It's just I'm not. If someone new comes into the stream, I'm very quick to tell them, if you're looking for a really good gamer, this is not the channel for you. But if you want to have fun, then stick around. So, it's, as I said, I genuinely thought I would improve, but sadly, I have not. I have not improved. But, we all get there. We'll get there in time.
Yeah, you have all the time in the world. And even if not, it's people will still enjoy. There's people for every streamer.
Yeah, but we've got one of the alerts that we've got is this horrendous scream that they all like to play it really. Those games where you can't make a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, when they play those scream alerts and I have my headphones on so loud and I will scream because of that scream and then I end up getting killed. So it's always it's a journey that we all go on together.
I love that. So when we come back to movies, indie horror movies, obviously the production has tight budgets. Like it's not a big Hollywood production. Are there some like bigger challenges that you've come across that you were very happy and it was very rewarding that you managed to make it look good or make it in a good way after all?
Yeah, I think with working with practical effects, I think it's always a nerve-wracking but rewarding experience. I think because you can read something in the script and think, how on earth are we going to do that? How is that going to happen? But then you see it happen on set and you're like, okay, this is so cool. I think one of the moments on Dead Reset we had where the creature bursts out of one of the characters. I said Graham and Mim, who were the as I said the special effects team, created this. I don't even know what it was, but it just shot. It was like a blood cannon. It just shot this blood out, and thankfully we'd covered the set with sheets because we knew it had the potential to be a big blood burst. And I was sat next to Stuart offset when this happened, and when there was like a countdown to it happening, and there's always the risk that it's not going to work. And I think that's always the nerve-wracking thing with these kind of things is, one, what if it doesn't work? But two, if it does work, you've only got one take, because the minute the blood's out, it's not going back in. And particularly if it lands on anyone. So for this shot in particular, when the blood went off, I looked at Stuart and his face he was just beaming. His jaw dropped. It was just this insane shot where the blood just flew everywhere. And so that was very rewarding to witness his reaction to that, and to obviously have something that's been in his head come to life on a screen, for other people to understand, okay, exactly what he wants. But I think, just go back to the blood splatters. Again, it's always, you never know what it's going to look like, I guess, until you actually see the film. And with the whole, you've only got one take, I think there's been so many times where, you're getting prepared and they've got all these, they call them, these blood cannons, that they've got these little, almost like water gun cannons. They're not water guns, but they're like, these, I don't know what they're called, but right in front of your face, like right next to the camera, and they're about to shoot all this blood into your face. You have to obviously still be in the scene, and your character doesn't know that they're about to be covered in blood, so you can't look like you're about to get covered in, so you can't sort of stand there like all stiff and like
it's gonna happen,
exactly, you're like flinching, so you have to just kind of get into this sort of zen mindset where you're like, I'm not about to get covered in 3 liters of blood. So it's always a rewarding moment when everything happens as it should, because practical effects obviously can take a long time to set up, but when they work, it's amazing to see everyone's reaction afterwards. particularly when either when you're watching or when you're in the scene, because I think when you're in the scene, you've no idea how it looks on screen, and you just hope that your reaction has been correct, or the blood's gone exactly where it should, or so I think anything with practical effects, I think, is always the most rewarding, I think, when it pays off.
I can really imagine that. Like, if you cannot just wipe up all the blood and make it look like nothing happened. It just has to work in one take, and it must be so rewarding.
Yeah, because it's so nerve-wracking, when they say, right, we've got one take to get this done, and you're like, okay, like, you just, because I think instantly when the blood hits your face, your natural reaction is to flinch, or is to laugh, or run straight to the bathroom to wash it off. You don't want to, your natural reactions take over, and I think you can use that to an effect in the production. But at the same time, you can't run off set, or you can't laugh. And I think sometimes, particularly when there's a group of you all look at each other and you're covered head to toe in blood. Your natural instinct is to laugh. But so that's quite hard to suppress that until they yell cut, and then you can laugh.
Yeah. So you talked about the neck in Dead Reset, where there was a lot of blood running down your neck, and it was like CG, no, not CG. And even it's practical effects.
Practical, yeah.
So how do you enjoy makeup and the practical effects that involve you as a person, like through makeup and gore and
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily enjoy it. I think it's always an experience. I think it sounds weird, but once the blood's on you, you kind of forget. And there's been many times where I've forgotten that my face is covered in blood, because it just dries so quickly.
Yeah.
And I can be walking. I remember going for lunch, and on set I didn't go into town.
That would be fun.
Imagine, just walking and then forgetting, and then someone turning around and going, "Oh," and you're thinking, "What? Oh, right, yeah, sorry, yeah, it's not my blood. I'm okay." But yeah, I think any kind of prosthetics like that, I think, is always an experience to have. And I've always got huge respect for actors who have to wear, really heavy prosthetics.
Yeah.
Because it's a long process. I've had 2 films where I've had quite a lot of prosthetics on, and obviously they have to be glued on, then they're painted, and it's a long process, and you're surrounded by really cool people, so you end up chatting for most of the time and stuff. But I think once they're on, it can help performance and things like that, because you've been sort of transformed into something else. And but I think the harder bit is getting it off. Because they've got all of these alcohol and things like that based products to get them off, so it doesn't hurt. They're not just pulling it off your skin or anything like that. But that's always the difficult process, is taking it all off, especially when you're covered in blood as well. So yeah, as I said, I have a lot of respect for actors who are in head to toe prosthetics. Like, I don't think I would necessarily take a role like that. But some of the work that people can create is just phenomenal. It's just amazing to see when someone's made like a fully practical, prosthetic. It's amazing. But I think, there's been a handful of times that I've had the prosthetics on, and it's when they're on, and I think the neck one in particular that we're talking about with Dead Reset, it just looked so real, and
it's great.
It was. Yeah, and they had a tube in it that came out of the front of my neck, and that's where all the blood was pouring out of. But it was just an amazing contraption, really. And there was because there's obviously the surgery in Dead Reset as well, just the whole body that they made and the organs, and they had a tube connected that Graham blew into, so some creature moved and it would inflate and deflate, and just little things like that just really bring a practical effect to life. But yeah, so I think, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there, but
no, that's fine.
I think,
I love hearing about all the behind the scenes things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun with practical effects, but I think, it's not a quick process when it comes to heavy prosthetics. But it is cool to see the final product when someone comes in and you're like, whoa, like you look so cool with all those sort of prosthetics on. So yeah, it's a huge talent I think that people have when they are experienced of working with prosthetics.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a behind the scenes moment that you can maybe share where something didn't go as planned and then you had to improvise and then make it work in another way?
Didn't go as planned. One story I think that's always fun to tell, and it's not necessarily that it didn't go to plan, it was just one that I was very interested to see how it was going to work. So it was in How to Kill Monsters, and there is a bit in the movie, which this isn't really a spoiler, where my character gets pulled into a giant slug. And in the script, when I was reading it, I was laughing, but I was like, okay, how are we going to do this exactly? And I remember the slug that they'd made that was by DDFX, a great team, and it was huge, this giant slug, and they did a great job with making it. And basically my character, this tentacle of the slug grabs me around my leg, flips me onto the floor, and pulls me into its mouth. Mm-hmm. So we had to work out, okay, how are we going to film me being dragged across the floor initially? Because they couldn't just, I think the problem we'd had at that point was it wasn't just a case of me being able to be pulled across the floor. Because we'd already had so much blood on set, the floor was so sticky that they couldn't just pull me because I was just getting stuck to the floor. So they had to use the dolly from the camera. So I had to lay on that, and then someone pulled me by my leg. So dollies on wheels pulled me by my leg, so they were able to get the shot of me moving. But then the shot to get me into the slug had to be a separate shot, where what they did was they got our first lady, Tony. She was in the slug, and I was half in the slug's mouth and half out. And the slug's mouth was covered in blood and goo and slime. And Tony grabbed me by my legs, and they literally did a countdown from 3, and she just yanked me into the slug, just pulled me straight in. And at first you're thinking, this isn't going to happen. This is going to be like a slow whip into the slug. No, it was really quick. She really pulled me, and she just pulled me straight in. And we did that in one take. Because we finished it, and she was like, "Yeah, we got it. We got the shot." Because I just got pulled in. So that was. But then equally, actually, my character breaking their way out of the slug was also interesting to do because the creature was so big. Mm-hmm. My character has an axe that she has to break out of the creature with. They had to cut a giant hole in the top of it for me to be able to rip it apart, because it was thick. So I'm not very strong. So there was no way I was going to be able to rip that myself. So the first take we did of that, I put the axe up out of the top of the slug's head, and I kind of shoot out the top of it with my arms pushing down either side of the slug. But what happened was, inside the slug, on the floor that I was on, because of this slime and the goo and everything like that, it was like an ice rink. It was so slippy.
Oh God!
So when I pushed the slug down either side, I just fell to one side, just slipped and fell sideways, which was hilarious in the outtake. But yeah, I was just sideways because I just couldn't get a grip on the floor. So that was fun. We did eventually get the take, but that I think that's what happens. Obviously, when there's so much gunk and everything on the floor, it made like a weird paste that was just extremely slippy. And I just had little trainers on, so there was no way I was staying standard on that. So yeah, I think that was a very and we had to, and as well, actually, that shot. I was dripping in this goo and slime. We had 10 minutes to get that shot because the studios that we were filming in were closing. Mm-hmm. So again, it was just, okay, we need to get this as quickly as possible. So I still can't believe we did that in 10 minutes, but we did. We got through it, and it was a very quick, run, dash out try and clean as much of my face as possible and then run to the car and hope that no one sees me covered in this weird blood and goo. Yeah, that was a wild day to get all of that. But I think it's just funny when you see it in the edit, when it all comes together and you're like, oh, okay, this works.
Yeah, it really makes me want to rewatch it now so I can imagine how it happens. It's really funny.
Yeah, it was so funny. So you just breaking up into little steps, and then because it's literally in the shot, it's only a couple of seconds long, but it takes all day to try and pull that off. But yeah, that was a funny behind the scenes moment for sure.
Yeah. So, with you playing mainly horror, do you need time after you're done shooting for the day to like get into a different, less gory, scary mindset, or does it really not get scary at all for you? Because obviously it's silly, everybody's laughing on set, and so you aren't really in a mood. In like a doctor, for example, has to like turn off their brain after work and not think about what they did at work. And how is that with playing horror roles?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't not necessarily because I think, as you've said, like when we do horror comedies, it's very silly. Everyone's laughing, everyone's having a good time. But I think with Dead Reset in particular, and with a couple of the other films that I've done, there's been some more emotional aspects to them, and particularly with Dead Reset, it's my character goes through a lot of emotional turmoil, and she's very emotional throughout the whole film, and very vulnerable, and that's always slightly more difficult, I think, once you've done a scene like that. I think what I found on when you're doing horror comedies, when my character in that is very emotional at the beginning, she goes through a sad moment, and it's always difficult to be emotional on a set, which this sounds strange, when everyone's having a really good time, which is what you absolutely want.
Yeah.
And it's always very difficult to get yourself into a very emotional place sometimes when everyone else is having a good laugh, which, as I said, is such a wonderful place to be, and that's what you want. So sometimes you do have to take yourself away to kind of get ready and get into the headspace, because sometimes you can come into a scene, particularly with Dead Reset, already being emotional, but it's always more difficult when you have to get emotional mid-scene. And I think with Dead Reset in particular, it was quite difficult because we were doing the different variants. There was a scene involving the surgery where I had to get very emotional, and we had to go from the start of the scene to the end and then go all again. So you kind of get to your peak emotional point, and then you have to go back to the beginning where you're not emotional
as if nothing
at all.
Happened.
yeah, and that's always a big challenge to get that right, and to make sure that you hit that same emotional level every single time. So I think afterwards, once you've done a scene like that, it is sometimes you do need a little bit of time, I think, just to kind of bring yourself out of it. But I've been very fortunate to work with an amazing cast who will sometimes come with me, and we'll just go and sit for 5 minutes off set, and or they'll just stand with me, or just give me a hug, or whichever. And even with the crew actually as well, they all understand what's needed, and beforehand and after a take, if it's involved crying or anything like that. And so yeah, I think sometimes it's just about taking yourself away for 5 minutes, and as I said, whether you're with someone or not, and just kind of leaving that moment on set, if that makes sense. And just kind of thinking, okay, it's done now, we can move on to the next bit. I always remember one day I had to do this was on How to Kill Monsters. I had to do a really emotional scene in the morning, and then some like crazy hilarious moment as the next shot, and that was an interesting thing to do, because you're going from crying to being like running around with a chainsaw after a monster. It's like always a weird day, but yeah, I think when it comes to emotional stuff, I think it's important to sometimes just take a moment just to bring yourself out of it, particularly if it's got very, very deep, and I think it's just key to surround yourself with really supportive people. And again, it just goes back to the people that we work with, because we know them so well. They know me so well, and so they understand when I might need support, or just, as I said, just 5 minutes outside or whatever. We understand each other so well, and there's a lot of trust in the room, which I think aids performance as well. Like, I don't, sometimes it's, if you're the only one that's getting emotional, which was the case in Dead Reset for a while. It's just knowing that the trust is there, that you can go to that place and you can get to that emotional state, knowing that they'll all be there for you if you need them. Yeah. So I think it's just having a really nice community around you.
It
I think
sounds so lovely. Like, it sounds really nice. If there was somebody who wanted to get into indie horror acting, like for you it just happened kind of, but if there's somebody who has this as a dream to get into the horror acting, are there any advice? Is there any advice that you would give them? Like things that they might expect that are very different in reality? Or
yeah, I think if they're, if anyone's, I always say, go to film festivals is always my number one tip, I think, just because you're then surrounded with like-minded people, and you never know who you're going to meet, and you can get talking to people, and you find that they're going to be making a short film, or they're going to make a feature film, and they're looking for an actor, and then you get linked on social media and you start chatting on there, and so I think there's an element of networking to it. But I think going to film festivals in your local area or whichever, and just watching films made by other people on this level, I think is so important and so inspiring as well, to see what people are creating, because it's incredible seeing some of the films that we see at film festivals is, as I said, so inspiring. And it's just, we're blown away by so many films that we've seen, that have been created on such low budgets. So I think sort of reaching out to film festivals is would be my first bit of advice, I guess, to just get to know people, because it is hard, and it is. I was fortunate in the way that I was able to work alongside my husband, but if you're starting out, just go and see things, and just surround yourself with other people who will likely be in the same position, wanting to get into making films, or just really keen to get working, and just watch as much as you can as well. We were chatting about so many horror films, but just absorbing as much horror, if horror is what you want to do. Just, as I said, surrounding yourself with horror, and just watching a lot of behind the scenes. I know that sounds silly, but you can learn so much from just watching behind the scenes stuff. And but I think the networking side of it is probably the best bit of advice I could give. And just meeting people, at film festivals, or going on social media pages and seeing if there's any castings or anything like that, or just working with friends and making a show reel, and making things yourself. You can film, obviously phone cameras are so good now, filming something on your phone, writing a little scene that you could put together, and just kind of start the ball rolling on what you like to perform and what you like doing. And if it's horror that you want to do, like, as you said, what kind of horror do you like? And, maybe pick a scene from a film that you really enjoy and shoot it with your friends, and just kind of get working like that. Because you never know what can happen, and you never know who you're going to meet. So,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. It's always hard. It is hard, though. It is really difficult. And, but I've met some really great people at film festivals. It's always a lot of fun going to them and just chatting with other people, and it's great fun. So I definitely recommend them.
Horror is always a little controversial, and I think personally still. I was, for example, talking to Will and Phil, the founders of the Horror Game Awards. They founded the Horror Game Awards because in the official Game Awards, there is basically no recognition of horror at all. Just like in the Oscars, it's like bigger festival prizes thingies don't really include horror and don't take horror very seriously. Have you seen a change in that, or do you think that's still the case, that horror is just not recognized as worthy of the time of people?
Yeah. I think it's changing. I think it's getting better. I think there's been more. If you look at Weapons, for example, it was such a huge film, and I saw that the actress in that has been nominated for a Golden Globe, which is really cool. To see horror being represented like that. And you look at, like, when you mentioned earlier, Hereditary, how it's Toni Collette, isn't it?
Yes, Toni Collette.
She should have been nominated. She was absolutely incredible in that. And it's a shame she wasn't nominated for her performance. But you see films, as I said, like Weapons, kind of coming out of the woodwork a little bit and being more mainstream, and getting the attention and kind of getting horror on the map, really. Things, as I said, films like Scream and things like that. But I completely agree. I think it's still not seen in the way that it should be. But I think it's getting better. I think, and I hope, because, as we've said, there's so many. I think a lot of people who don't necessarily like horror just assume that there's only one type of horror, and it's just gory, and it's just this and that, and they don't realize how many other genres are within horror. And I think that's what's so unique about horror, is that there's only really horror that's like that. You've got so many subgenres, whereas with all other films, you've like a rom-com, you don't have a lot of subgenres within rom-coms, or all those. And for example, with horror, you have so many horror film festivals. You don't get that with any other genre of film. You don't get a rom-com festival, you don't get an action festival. I think there's something to be said about that, really, that like there is so many horror film festivals out there across the world, and as I said, you don't get that with other films. I mean, whether that's the case because of the lack of representation at these bigger events, I'm not sure, but I think that's really cool, and I think it should be seen more. And it's not just these gory films. There's so much more to horror now. I watched earlier in the year Heretic, which I thought was an amazing horror film. Really, really well written, well performed. And, so horror just comes in so many different ways now, that I hope it continues to grow, obviously. Like, I hope that people, that it gets recognized more. But I think it's on its way, but it's still got a bit of a way to go, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's being seen more, which is great.
Which is also thanks to people like, for example, Will and Phil from the Horror Game Awards pushing for.
Absolutely.
Like, they just recognized nobody's doing it, so they just did it, and they've been doing it for 4 years now. And it started as like this small project with 12 people in the jury, and now it's gonna be a live show in London, which is wild, in 4 years. It just goes to show that loads of people really are interested and want to see all of that, and I hope it will be recognized more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really great that people are like that are doing this, and that we're really excited about the Horror Game Awards. We're going to be attending, so we're really looking forward to it and to meeting everyone there. And it's great that because it means so much, I think, to people when things like this do get created, or like film festivals or whichever, and people's work gets recognized in an area that they didn't expect. I think it's always great, and it's nice to see people's work being shown. Yeah, so it's wonderful when people recognize work like that.
Yeah, and it's a fun challenge, I feel like, for people who think they don't like horror to find the right horror movie for them. Like, I have a friend who doesn't really like horror. He always says it's mainly about if a horror movie is only horror, he doesn't like it. But if there's like something else to it, he can. And then I showed Midsummer to him, and he was like, "That was a horror movie." And I was like, "What?" Certainly. And then he was thinking about this movie for 3 days straight, and was sending me messages, and was like, and I just remember this and this, and then talked about different scenes. And I feel like there's a horror movie for everyone, and you just have to find the right angle to approach them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so many ways into horror, and I think, there's, as we said, that don't necessarily, horror doesn't mean gore and blood and guts. There's so much more to that, like Midsummer, and really psychological horrors. And if you find your way in, you find what you like, then you can so many people, more people can enjoy horror without just assuming what horror is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah.
In 2 of the 3 movies that I've watched, besides that Reset, which is kind of the 4th movie, you play a woman who falls in love with another woman. Is this playing a queer character something that you are personally connected to, or is this just a coincidence? And is that something, because the horror community is pretty queer, I feel like we are often very left-leaning, and there's a lot of queer people and people from the LGBTQIA plus community. Are you connected to that in any way, and is it important to you to represent that as well?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, that aspect. So the 2 films that you mentioned were Eating Miss Campbell and Book of Monsters. And to be honest, it wasn't necessarily, you know, what I loved about the way that they incorporated that into the character was, particularly with Book of Monsters, there wasn't anything said about it, if that makes sense. It was just,
it was not a plot point. It was just,
no,
it just was.
Yeah. Sophie was just, you know, she was gay, and she really liked this character called Jess, and I think their little love story, if you like, in the film it's really beautifully written, and I think it's just a part of her, and it's just a part of the film. And I think all the characters, you know, apart from one horrible character in Book of Monsters who voices an opinion on it, it's very quickly shut down. And you know, it just becomes a part of the story and a part of Sophie, and I think it's just very well done in that aspect. And I think, you know, it's, you know, it's great seeing so many diverse characters, I think, in films now that do represent that community. And yeah, I think it wasn't, you know, when I read the script, it was just like, oh, okay, you know, she's a gay character, and that's, you know, it was part of her, and that's who she was. So she was a great character to play. So it wasn't, yeah, I think it was just the way they incorporated it, and it was just, I just enjoyed that she was who she was, and, you know, she fell in love with her friend, and it was, yeah, as I said, yeah, it was just really, really well done. And yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe it. It wasn't like a conscious choice kind of thing. It was just like that's who Sophie is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's why I just loved Sophie as a character. And her being gay was just part of who she was, and yeah, she was yeah, as I said, that her as a character will always hold a special place in my heart, just because of the film and who she was and her story. So,
yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question or not, but I think
it does. Yeah, I feel like it's a very important thing to. Like, obviously, there's stuff where it's more in focus. Like, if you look at a show like Heartstopper, or just like things where it's more of a plot point. But I think to get it more normalized, it makes sense to just make it. It just is. It's not a big deal, and I feel like that's a good way of approaching it. And I kind of liked it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's just who Sophie was, and I think everyone. You know, as you said, there wasn't anyone shouting out about it. It wasn't a plot point. It was just part of the story. And I think similar with Miss Campbell, you know, she falls in love with with one of her teachers, which is obviously a bit of a taboo subject anyway. But, you know, that's just who she was, you know. And again, it wasn't essentially, you know, their kind of love story was a plot point in a way, but it wasn't. Again, it was done in a very similar way, that it wasn't her being gay that was the plot point. It was the love story. It
could have been any other teacher of any other gender. Yeah. It would have worked just the same.
Yeah, like you said, you know, and that's how it should be done, you know, that it's just a part of that person. Yeah.
Indie horror often pushes the boundaries to give like space to underrepresented groups of all kinds, really. And do you think it's like a unique point for horror, or do you think that's just in general a movie thing? Because I personally think the horror community is a little bit left leaning, and does put a lot of effort into be more representative lately. Like it hasn't always been that. Like that horror, just like any other genre, was very white for a long time, for example. And very heterosexual and
yeah, I think the horror community is just so welcoming, and I think it's and I think it's getting better in all genres of film now. You know, there is a lot more diversity, which is great to see. You know, so I think things have changed a lot. I imagine there's still work to do, you know, in any genre. But I think in the horror genre, I think diversity is played out very well. It's certainly getting better. But as I said, it's just such a welcoming community. And that's why, you know, we love doing horror, because it's just everyone that we meet is so lovely. And as you said, it's more left leaning, and I think, you know, it's much more diverse now, and so different to what, as you said, what it used to be. But you know, I think maybe it's, you know, indie horror you know, does push more boundaries and likes to tell different stories, and it's exciting to watch that. You know, it's great when you see a new story being told, and you know, there's diversity in films and TV as well. But yeah, I think horror is definitely kind of maybe leading the way on that, which is great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really cool to see.
If you could collaborate with any horror director in the world, everyone, past or present, somebody who's dead, somebody who's alive, who would you want to make a movie with?
Okay, if it was in horror, I'd probably go, just because I'm the big Scream girl, it would probably be Wes Craven, just because Scream's amazing and I want to just be in a Scream film. Outside of horror, maybe Steven Spielberg, because you know, there's so many of his films that I just love. And I just think that would be so cool to be like, oh yeah, I'm just working with Steven Spielberg. So maybe those two would be really cool to work to have. Well, Wes Craven would have been amazing to have worked with. I also really loved Tony Scott. So I loved a lot of his films, like Man on Fire, Deja Vu, Unstoppable. Like the editing style in those films is amazing. So he would have been really cool to work with. Edgar Wright is a great director. I love Hot Fuzz is possibly my favorite film. It's just so funny. So Edgar Wright would be really cool to work with. There's probably so many. But I'll stick with them before I fall down a little hole.
Before you make an endless list. No, I get it. It's hard to
directors.
Pick. Yeah, I understand. So I guess the question that I have written down here, what's your comfort horror movie, is kind of obsolete now, because it's Scream 2 then, huh?
Scream 2, I don't know. For me, Scream 2 is the best one. I don't know why. I just think it's a great film. But yeah, I mean, it's always funny, isn't it, when people say, wait, your comfort film is a horror film? But I think if I was bored and I thought, actually, I really want to watch a horror film, I think Scream would probably be the one I'd go to, or certainly the one I would consider first. And then I'd maybe go, I should watch something new, and then go, actually, I'll just watch Scream. I don't know they're just great. They're just great. And I'm so excited for the new one. I just love Sidney Prescott as a character. I think is so great. And her character development throughout the whole franchise. I really missed her in Scream 6. So it was still good, but for me, I was like, where's Sydney? But yeah, so I think one of the Scream films would probably be my go-to horror, definitely, yeah.
It is definitely a comfort series, because there's also no bad movie in this entire series. Like every movie is at least decent. Even if you are not the biggest fan of the movie, it's still a decent movie. And I've been watching all the Scream movies separately with two different friends, because they both hadn't seen them. So I'm parallelly watching the movies multiple times. I will actually be watching Scream 5 tomorrow with a friend who has not seen Scream until like 2 weeks ago, where I made him watch it with me.
I love that. I bet it's funny as well seeing that if they've got different reactions to them as well.
Yes. He, like the friend that I'm watching with tomorrow, is absolutely smitten. He does not understand how he hasn't watched them before.
I love that.
And then the other two are a friend couple who had watched some of them, not all of them, but some of them. And we started watching them on, like, I think 2 years ago on Halloween. We watched the first Alien and the first Scream. And it has been dragging because I don't see them that often. But it's really nice to like watch them with them and then see them refresh their memory, and it's like, oh, I remember that. And then now we're coming into the territory where they haven't actually seen the movies, so that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's so fun. I love that, because I really like a lot of people don't like Scream 4, and I think it's great.
I thought I don't like Scream 4, and then I rewatched it last week, and then I was like, what did I not like? It's actually fun. It's actually...
it is. Yeah, it is. I think the opening's really fun. Like having the fake out kind of openings. I think it was a genius idea. And yeah, I really like it. I don't understand why it gets the all the bad rap that it does, because I think it's good. I think it's good fun. I'm excited to see where they go with this new one, because
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, the trailer hasn't given much away, so I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So where do you see Dark Rift horror in the next few years? Maybe Stuart will hear this and think, okay, I guess I have to do a slasher movie now.
Yes. Well, we talk about it all the time. I'm like, maybe you could just make a slasher film. Like, maybe.
Do you think that will happen within the next 5 years? Do you think? Where do you think they will?
Yeah, they've got so many ideas. So many that, we're already talking about future stuff, constantly, flashing back ideas, thinking, okay, what about this or what about this? And I guess it's the direction of, next thing that we do we go back to horror comedy, or do we stick with the more kind of serious vibes? Or do we do a slasher film? There's so many avenues for us to explore and to go down. And I think, there's just that kind of keen energy now to be like, okay, let's, we really want to make something again. So who knows? I think I know for a fact that anything they make will just be, again, practical effects driven, fun film, whether that is more serious or more horror comedy, but, it'll be everything that a Dark Rift film is. But yeah, I think that there's just so much that we're discussing that I'm excited to see what the next step will be. There's a couple of things in my head that I'm like, I'd love to do that, and I'd love to do this. And, we'll start talking about an idea and it'll start spiraling. And then, we were talking about something the other day and I haven't stopped thinking about it. And I'm like, please, can we make that? So who knows in terms of what the actual film will be, but there is definitely conversations happening of the next things. So, yeah.
And what's next for you? Like, this episode comes out in February. So is there something that you will be doing that you can already share, or is it all stay secret, or nothing in production right now?
Yeah, it's difficult. So I'm working on another video game actually at the moment,
awesome.
which has been really cool. So I'm hoping that'll be out next year. And then I've got maybe there's about 3 feature films that I've done over this year and last year that I'm hoping will surface next year. Really hoping that they'll come out. They kind of range from horror comedy to more psychological horror as well. So there's a real kind of broad range of stuff. So as I said, I'm really hoping that they'll get there, whether they'll be on the festival runs or not. I'm just fingers crossed that they'll come out, because it's quite a broad range, which was a lot of fun to do.
I will definitely keep up with that. I cannot wait to see you in a the psychological, more ghostly horror.
Thank you. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to do. I actually really, really enjoyed it. It was a really great character, and it was. There was a ghost one, and then more of a, again. Actually, in fact, they're both kind of ghost ones. But yeah, the characters that I played in both of them were really fun to do, and just different, to do kind of that kind of more scary horror was really fun. So fingers crossed that they'll be released next year, I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Do you want to plug yourself? Where should people follow you?
Yeah, so I'm mainly Instagram's probably the best place. So it's just at Lyndsey Craine. The Instagram's probably the most, the one that I'm on. Obviously, I stream on Dark Riff Horror's channel. So I'm hoping to get back to that a bit more consistently soon. But yeah, so probably that, and then my Instagram, which is, as I said, at Lyndsey Craine, is where I share and post most of my stuff.
Yeah, we'll link both of that so people can actually
Thank you.
Because I saw that you have a Twitter/X, but it's not as used as your Instagram, for sure.
Yeah, I've never been very good with, even when I got Twitter and X, whichever it's called now. I wasn't very active on it, and it's just gotten less and less. I'll go on it, and if someone's posted something, I'll reshare it. But I don't know. I've just never been very active on there. But I do have an account, so again, it's just at Lyndsey Craine on X. And I will, obviously, if anyone smear or anything like that, I will respond. I do respond to messages and things like that on there, but I just don't post as much.
Well, Lyndsey, it was really, really nice. We basically filled our 2-hour mark. That was amazing. I had so much fun. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you. It's been so much fun. Thank you. It doesn't feel like we've been chatting for nearly 2 hours. So It's been so much fun. So honestly, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful, and it's been so fun chatting to you.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye. Thank you for listening to CEOs of Screams, the podcast. If you enjoyed Lyndsey Craine as a guest on this podcast, please make sure to watch all of her movies, follow her on Instagram and on her Twitch. Also make sure to follow CEOs of Screams on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube and Twitch. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also make sure to rate us on the podcast platform of your choice. That helps us with our visibility. This show was produced and edited by me, Sumi, and the witch cackle you can hear in the beginning and the end of the episode is done by Liv Zombie.